Hi, this video refers to the special session Post-Normal Science in Practice Lesson Learned from the MAGIC project that we held on September 22nd within the activities of the Post-Normal Science 5 Symposium in Florence 2020. In this presentation, I will illustrate innovative conceptual aspects developed in the MAGIC project that have complemented an understanding of post-normal science grounded in complexity. In particular, we will start with the acknowledgement that in the sustainability predicament we are living at the moment is due to the fact that we cannot see what are our problems. And this is due to the massive use of economic narratives that probably are used to inform policy exactly because we don't want to see this predicament. And second, that it is possible to avoid the hypocognition determined by adoption of economic narrative if we are adopting analytical tools more sophisticated. However, the creation of better analytical tool by itself is insufficient to improve the quality of the process and use of science in decision making. And this is where the post-normal science perspective enters into play, that this perspective is essential if we want to improve the quality of the governance. So let's start with the introductory result. At the moment, in sustainability science, in our practical life, we have a problem with sustainability. Everyone knows it, but it seems that nobody wants to recognize it. The problem is not about lack of resources or the existence of problems that we cannot fix. The problem is that we, as human beings, moreover, it's not we, all the humankind, is the establishment of the most developed country and the power structure, the current institution, they want to change, and we are part of it, because we are so scared about the possibility of a radical change in our life that we don't even want to acknowledge the existence of a problem. Of course, if we do not acknowledge the existence of a problem, we will never be able to solve it. So let's start with the Leave is to Grow and the scare that the establishment got in the 60s and the 70s. You can see here the curve of human population, the energy consumption per capita. These curves, if you go on the left, remained more or less constant for thousands of years. Then suddenly, in 1800 and especially 1900, the second half of 1900, the population on this planet start growing, doubling in 40-50 years, and then keep doubling from 2 billions to now 7 billions. And even more important is that the consumption per capita of energy increased quicker than the increase in population. So in the 60s, we had a first reflection on the fact that this expansion of population and consumption per capita was unsustainable. And then the discussion at the time was what will happen? What will happen? A total collapse or readjustment, or we just get into a steady state situation? Of course, this will imply some sort of major restructuring of the institutional setting and our ideological view of the world. And then we got a reaction to this. That is from neoclassical economists. We got basically, we are reading the graph wrong, that we can have a perpetual economic growth, and then the economy will go 3% per year forever. And this is the most infamous line is about the world can in effect get along with natural resources. By the way, this is exactly the concept of circular economy with the decoupling of economic growth and from the consumption of resources. So let's get into this claim and using something more familiar. Let's imagine we are talking about the metabolism, what we are eating. So we are talking about food security. And we have that basically our food security depends on this line of event. You're producing food, then you have either animal or vegetable food. Then these food are breaking down inside our body, in secondary flows, carbohydrate proteins, and these are used to do what is done in our tissue cells and in our body to express activity. This is the regular metabolism. And let's imagine that now we want to increase our food security and stabilize the food security against the fact that we have external constraints. And let's imagine that then we have someone that say, okay, since these primary flows are outside our control, the production of meat and the production of food, why don't we use the secondary flows, the one that we have under control, to produce the first one? So basically, we could use the protein and the carbohydrates that we find inside our body to make meat and to make vegetable. So at that point, we are totally circular and we no longer depend on the resources coming from nature. Of course, nobody will hire this type of scientists, let alone ask them to make plans for guaranteeing food security. It's, everyone can understand that the secondary flows we have inside the body are smaller than the primary flows coming from nature, and that for making these primary flows, we need much more energy and resources and material flows than the one contained into the meat and vegetable. They are much more than the one contained in carbohydrate protein. However, in spite of this obvious fact, nobody knows why we are keeping asking the economists to solve our problem of sustainability, because other fact, the economists and the main economic narratives are about the fact that the circular economy and metabolism is possible. So this is what can be called the policy legend of circular economy, imagining that the technosphere can produce labor, land, and technology on its own. We know that in reality, this is not the case. The functioning of the economy, in any case, require primary sources getting in and waste getting out. The fact that this obvious fact is not acknowledged is a clear, a glaring example of the ideological nature of the problem we are facing. Again, this is the human population energy consumption and what happened in with the fossil energy. As a matter of fact, we call it industrial revolution. So basically, in pre-industrial economy, we had economies based on circular flows, and the industrial revolution implied that a major linearization of flows. We are not wasting the energy, the biomass produced by recycling nutrient in nature. We are just extracting oil and extracting ores from mines and extracting and dumping things into the atmosphere or wherever. So basically, it seems that economists miss the point that the Industrial Revolution has been a massive process of linearization of the economy. So what is the conclusion of the first point here? That the sustainability predicament number one is socially constructed ignorance. This is a concept introduced by Steve Reiner. And it basically is that to make sense of the complexity of the world, in order to act, individuals and institutions need to develop a simplified, self-consistent version of the world. So this implies that you have to do some heroic simplification, and therefore the knowledge which is in tension or outright contradiction with those versions must be expunged. So this functional case of uncomfortable knowledge have to be ignored. So basically, the massive adoption of economic narrative has implied eliminating from the discussion of sustainability an enormous amount of uncomfortable knowledge that we have about the sustainability. The second set of results of magic, it is about the showing the possibility to avoid the hypercognition determined by adoption of simplistic analysis based on reductionism if we use complexity. Of course, we work for years. We published more than 10 papers of different applications. We have several deliverables. So what I can give here is just an example. And this is about the idea that it will be possible to have a radical decarbonization of a EU economy in 10-20 years. And our diagnostic analysis showed that this is not possible because we can neither produce electricity or liquid fuels in a massive scale if we don't use fossil energy. So below, we can see what happens if we use alternative accounting framework to check the plausibility of the proposed policy. This is the famous killing curve. It gives you the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere over the last years. And then we can see against this curve the various conference against the accumulation of CO2 in the atmosphere, all the excitement we can remember, all the excitement, the applause, that we had in all this meeting. And basically, what this figure shows, basically we are living in a virtual reality. Everyone is happy that we are fighting and checking the emission against climate change, but basically nothing can happen. It's basically, it is not clear why people believe that doing more of the same that never worked for the last 30 years will have a different effect in the future. So we can compare this observation of how is the situation with the scenarios done by the European Commission. And when having this figure, I remember a cartoon that has not been done for this purpose, but more or less is very pertinent for the situation, in which you have on a blackboard a series of a question on the left and a series and a question on the right, and in the middle there is then a miracle occurs written in, and then it is not clear why by keeping doing what we did in the past, it didn't work. At a certain point it will start working magically. So in Magic, we did a lot of application of what we call quantitative storytelling to check the credibility of scenarios, models, and policy. And in terms of energy, food, and water, we are just looking now at the energy part. And the question is, how plausible is this graph? Biofuel are not getting anywhere. We did a couple of papers on this, looking at the past experience and the future, what can be expected in the European Union. We do not have a large-scale storage for intermittent electricity. So basically, wind and solar, when they reach a certain level, 30% in the grid, they are generating more problem than solving it. Hydrogen is still far away. So we can go into a series of analysis showing that it's very problematic, the idea that you could reduce 20 to 20% the emission. But there is a conceptual error that is extremely serious here, is that assuming that we were serious and really starting tomorrow, we will stop all our activity and having a sort of war economy that is about changing the energy matrix. Basically, we will have to build a total different way of producing electricity, fuels, new cars, new fleet of trucks, new cement factories, new iron factory, whatever. We have to rechange and build all our economy in 10 years or 20 years. Since at the moment we have fossil energy for doing it, this will imply a huge increase of emission, at least in the transitory period. We will have a transitory period in which we will emit more, and then after that we start reducing the emission, and what is called the payback time. And of course, this is not even considered. So it is really bizarre to see the quality of the type of analysis that we're using to decide our policies. So let's go to the last part of the presentation, that is the most important for the relation with post-normal science. And then what do we see? That what we learn is that we should move away from the concept of governance of complexity, that the dream that we can predict and control, and move to a concept of governance in complexity, acknowledging that we cannot control, we don't know what happened, so we have to go for a caring and reflexive economy, like that, an economy that is optimizing things to do. So this implies as well, in relation to the production and use of knowledge, that we should get out of the concept of knowledge transfer, that we are using scientific evidence to explain data and facts to society, and we should move to the concept of co-production of knowledge, that we are using quantitative storytelling to deliberate about quantitative storytelling to deliberate about the decision to be taken in relation to available scientific information and the feeling, hopes, and emotion found in the society. So I will present here 3 insights from post-normal science. That when dealing with sustainability analysis, it is impossible to decouple passion from reason. The quality control in sustainability science require an extended peer community. And 3, the sustainability is about learning how to update the identity of the society while remaining functional. That is, changing the airplane while flying. This is something forcing individual and institution to deal with the tragedy of change. So the first point is easy to explain. Basically, in the political sphere, we have that different actors have different feelings and different concerns. Then in the political sphere, basically, these concerns are prioritized, and then only a certain concern are expressed as concern of the society. And in the scientific sphere, you have different knowledge claims that can be used to have different representation. So what is important is to match a relevant knowledge claim with a prioritized concern, and this is done when you are framing a problem using a given narrative. So basically, you can see that this choice of framing the problem that has to do something that is fitness for purpose imply bridging to wall in a way. One is deciding who is us in the problem structuring, that is a political discussion, and then select the better way, the best way to anticipating our interaction with external world. So then, if this is true, it is important to have an extended peer community to control the quality of this process. Basically, when we deal with policy, we have 3 types of narratives. Justification narratives, that is about what are the concerns that have to be addressed, and then this choice is based on the political management of feeling and emotion. Normative narrative is about the action to be taken, and this choice affected by power relation and knowledge claims. And 3, explanation narrative are about the scientific evidence or the information use, and the choice depend on the relevance determined by the selection of the first 2 narratives. So what is the problem with this? That if we are putting together these 3 narratives in a given policy domain and we stick with them, then you have what is called an epistemic box. Depending on the justification narrative, you are selecting a normative narrative on the basis of explanation that you get. Then from here, you are selecting only a certain policy relevant knowledge base. According to the selected base, you are locking in the normative narrative that is reinforcing the justification narrative. And when you are inside this epistemic box, it became difficult to think outside the epistemic box. In the sense, you are at risk of hypocognition. If there are things that have been not considered in the definition of justification narrative or in the definition of what is a policy relevant knowledge base, you will lose them forever. Okay, so what MAGIC proposed to do in relation to this point is, first of all, you have to check the quality of the pre-analytical choice, the quality of the process that's been used to select and prioritize concern, what are the problems to be solved, what is the priority that's been given, what concerns are acknowledged, what concerns are ignored. This type of question that refer to the pre-analytical phase of the choice of an epistemic box. Then we go in the normative narratives, and then you can really use the complexity-based analytical tools to check, are they feasible, are they viable, what are the gains and losses across the different indicator, what's called impact matrix and multi-criteria analysis, who are the winners and losers, among the various social actors. This would be the equity matrix, and how the policy look when considering long-term and evolutionary view. And finally, there is a third quality check about the exponential narrative, how fair and effective has been the process used to produce and use quantitative information. What information is missing? Can we organize the available information to more robust decision support tool? Can we implement procedure based on participatory process, allowing a more robust process of co-production of knowledge and fairer deliberation? So these are three quality checks that Magic project suggests to use when looking at the robustness of a policy domain. The last part is about a deeper part with our feeling and passion. And of course, nobody likes the tragedy of change, and therefore we try to avoid to acknowledge the fact that we need to change. So there are three attractors that we have to stay away. Socio-technical imaginary. There are ideological colonization of desirable, implausible future, determining a systemic neglecting of possible alternative future. Grand falloons of policy legend that enhance the generation of unknown knowns. So we systemically ignore available but uncomfortable knowledge. And third one, the economics of techno-scientific promise, assuming that the solution to all our problems will be given by the market and by silver bullet, and we don't have to do anything, just that let the market to invisible hand and human ingenuity to save us. Let's go to this one by one. I like very much this cover about social technical imaginary. You promised me Mars colonies. Instead, I got Facebook. I found this is fantastic because it's really a look at the bifurcation that you can find in this field. And then let's come into social technical imaginaries. This is Sheila Yasanov. They are collective and institutionally stabilized and publicly performed vision of desirable future, animated by shared understanding of form of social life and social order, attainable through and supportive of advance in science and technology. Social technical imaginaries allow the colonization of the future, defining vision and expectation, and therefore they are key element in ambitious policy agendas such as the Green Deal. However, they can also represent powerful generator of socially constructed ignorance, and that they can be used to stabilize existing power structure. In relation to graph alone, this is a term introduced by Kurt Vonnegut, and then they are a group of people we believe that they have a special connection, we believe that they are helping to bring about the green plan, but they are actually not. So basically the graph alone is a concept related to policy legend. Historical narrative specific to a time and a place, delivered in a conventional mode, representing folk beliefs and collective experience, and reaffirming the group common values. That perpetual growth on the finite planet is possible. This is a policy legend. So, but then let's assume that we would acknowledge the existence of limits. What would happen? What are urban elites scared of? This is the wisdom of Herman Daly. The urban elite don't want to open a discussion about redistribution of wealth. They don't want to open a discussion about population, and they don't want to open a discussion about the too high level of welfare of urban elite. And so what the urban elite must believe in the Cartesian dream of quantification, prediction, and control. They want to believe that no matter what, science and technology and the market will preserve the fantastic materials of living. But how is this? How can we describe this attitude? According to Freud, the psychotic delirium is crucially concerned with the breakdown and recreation of the whole world. Delirium is systemic, not representative. It seeks to refashion the world rather than interpret it. So basically, you have a problem, you don't deal with the problem, you construct a different reality, a reality in which everything is circular and everything is smart, inclusive, no emission, no waste, no anything. Peace, justice. So this is what we call it governance of complexity. A Cartesian dream that you can fix the world, correct errors of nature, then in order to get a perpetual expansion of humankind, both in size and space consumption forever. We said that we should rather go with the governance in complexity. We should go for reflexive, caring, and adaptive learning. So rather than, yes, we can, we should use narratives about Houston, we have a problem. And then we need extended peer community and technologies of humility. This is another expression proposed by Sheila Yasanov. The technology is not give you unlimited power. You have to use technology to help people and society that are facing problems. So what are the conclusions here? The conclusion is that we have a problem of accumulation of uncomfortable knowledge. A large quantity of the narrative used right now are based on policy legend due to the fact that we are using an epistemic boxing based on neoclassical economics. This systemic selection rose is technological imaginary, easy to explain because it allows to avoid unpleasant policy discussion and destabilize the existing status quo. We can avoid the insurgence of the ancien regime syndrome, that having a society that can no longer react to the signal of danger, but we have to abandon reductionism and embrace complexity. So use quantitative analysis to couple to participatory process to describe in an effective way the interaction of human society and the environment and the link between the expression of social practices and the resulting feeling of social actors. Magic has also shown that we should forget about scientific evidence and move toward quantitative storytelling. If we move away from the concept of scientific evidence used to establish a top-down transfer of knowledge, and we adopt instead quantitative storytelling used to check the quality of the narrative used in the liberation of our policy, then it will become much easier to co-produce knowledge and then guaranteeing the quality of the process of governance through the establishment of extended peer communities. And finally, we should forget about governance of complexity and move toward governance in complexity. What we need is a society that is more reflexive, caring, and adaptive. And business models and silver bullets will not solve our problem of sustainability. We must do it on our own, using our passion, the best available information, and by acting all together.